The Sound Off Podcast. The show about podcast and broadcast. Starts now.
Jay, how'd you get started in radio?
You know, it's a bit of an interesting story. I didn't get into radio the traditional way that most people did by going to a broadcasting program and then hunting for that first job afterwards. The job almost found me. You got to go back about 20 years. It was 2005. I was in the Air Force serving as an avionics technician. So I was in the military. And a new radio station launched in Courtenay Comox. And they put up these lawn signs in the ditch along the roadway into the base. And it just said 98.9 Jet FM on the signs. They named it after the base as a nod to the Air Force. And it caught my eye. So I turned it on when I got to work and started listening. And they were talking about this contest that they were launching with, inviting listeners to come down to the radio station that Friday morning, super early, beginning of the morning show, come with your bags packed, as somebody was going to be going on a trip that day to go see the Rolling Stones in Calgary as part of their Bigger Bang tour in 2005. So I went, and they handed everybody an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, and they said, make the best paper airplane that you can. And being an airplane tech, part of the curriculum is early curriculum with theory of flight is how to build a great paper airplane. So it was kind of made for me. It was my dream contest. I had a gut feeling that I'd win, and I did. I built the best paper airplane I could, and we all lined up and threw those paper airplanes, and mine went the furthest. So I won the trip. It was amazing. So I took my buddy from the military, went and saw the Rolling Stones in concert in Calgary. When we came back, that's when it really kind of happened. In addition to my job on the base, I was also the entertainment coordinator for our junior ranks mess. And we were planning a comedy night. And I'm a shoot for the stars kind of guy. Take a chance, see how it goes, and try. And we reached out to the now late Mike McDonald, to his team anyway, to see if he'd be interested in doing a show for us on the base. And our budget was pretty modest. Let's just say nowhere near what his fee is. But he explained to us that his dad was in the Air Force and he grew up on military bases across Canada. Now living in LA, he said, as long as you cover my travel and I get a little something, I'll come for whatever your budget is. And it made waves on the base and throughout the community. And as a thanks for winning that Rolling Stones trip, I called up the morning show. It was Pete Montana and Rue Phelps. And I asked if they wanted to come to the show. And they came. I told a couple of jokes on stage, emceed the show, introduced Mike, and he went up on stage and killed it. It was an amazing night, amazing show. And it was after the show that Pete approached me and he asked if I'd ever thought about radio. He said I did a great job on stage, and he said he saw something in me that he thought I should try exploring radio. So really, I owe almost my entire career to Pete seeing that and giving me a shot. He brought me into the radio station. I jumped at the opportunity, and he started teaching me how to do really the basics. It started with doing some live on location stuff, live on location broadcasts. He taught me how to do some voice tracking, kind of basic stuff about executing a radio show. And shortly thereafter, he offered me the afternoon drive show on Jet FM. So that's where it all began back in, it would have been 2006. I took on that show and kind of never looked back. For a couple of years, I was on the air, racing to the radio station after doing my day job as a military guy. And then executing a show. But when we first started, I first went in, the first thing he said to me was, Jay, we got to come up with a radio name for you. You got your military persona. And that's where Stone came from. He said, why don't we name you after your contest that you won? So Jay Stone became my radio name, and that's where it all took off, so to speak.
That's awesome. And actually, you mentioned the name Mike McDonald, who's no stranger to radio stations, always willing to make an appearance.
Absolutely.
I want to think that he was in the Maritimes at one point, but I do know that he spent a lot of time in Ottawa, which was where I think, well, he died eventually there and based himself out of there. But, you know, what a great choice to hire for that event.
Yeah, it was amazing. He did an incredible show, and being the guy that was communicating between him, his team, and when he came in, I was kind of the guy taking him around, and we ended up planning a familiarization flight for him on the base. So there was the Buffalo search and rescue aircraft. They're the fixed wing yellow bright airplanes. And I lined up a familiarization flight for him and I to go on, and just as a thank you for coming for such a low fee. And we we walk out on the tarmac as we're doing the tour, and I said, "Surprise! We're going to go on this plane and go for a flight," not knowing he is just terrified of flying. We're about to go on the flight of a lifetime. We took him right up along the glacier by Comox, and then the plane just dove straight down, and we did a dive and dropped about 4,000 feet like that. The look on his face, I'll never forget.
You're aware he has heart issues, right?
I wasn't at the time. That was.
Maybe they came afterwards.
I hope not. I hope that wasn't. But I had that conversation with Pete after the show. It was that night, and the next morning, Mike said, "Hey, I got no plans. I got to have some breakfast. The guy's got to eat. Why don't you join me for breakfast?" So I took him to a little diner in Comox. We sat down, and I had the conversation with him about the conversation I had with Pete the night before, and it was actually Mike who pushed me to do it. He said, "Jay, just go. I heard you on there too. Just follow your dreams. Just go do it. And you never know what can happen." And here we are. We're almost 20 years later. And I'm fortunate enough to lead, well, what the Canadian Radio Awards is called the best radio station in Canada, and Up 99.3, which is a damn good radio station too.
So what attracted you to the military position? Was it the airplanes, or was it the fact that it was nearby, or everybody did it? What was it?
I spent some time throughout my childhood in Air Cadets. So right. I learned a lot. I traveled a lot with Air Cadets. I did a summer camp in Ontario, so I spent some time in Borden, and actually did a camp on avionics. So doing that before I graduated, it kind of ticked my brain a little bit. And even back when I was really, really young, we'll go back to 5 years old, 6 years old, my dad used to take me to the Calgary airport, and we'd go pick up some burgers. There was a little road you could park right near the end of the runway, and we'd sit there and we'd eat cheeseburgers and just watch these planes taking off. And he had a little radio. We could listen to the control tower, and it's honestly some of my fondest memories of growing up was just sitting there and watching planes with Dad. So I think that's really what pushed me to do it, and just get me out of the house after graduating high school and do something before I figure out what exactly I want to do with my life.
Do you think there's some sort of connection between broadcasting and radio and airplanes? I find there's a disproportionately higher number of people who are in broadcast who have some sort of affinity with flying.
Interesting. I've never really thought about the connection between the two. I mean, technically, there's a lot that is connecting between the two. Avionics in itself is the fixing of electronics on the airplane. So I was trained to fix FM transmitters that are communication equipment between aircraft and the control tower, in addition to radar equipment, which has RF technology with radars, with transmitters and receivers, and you name it, enter the radio world. And technically, there is a lot that connects airplanes to radio. But as far as the mindset between just liking airplanes or travel or the aviation industry and also liking radio, I'm not sure. I'm not sure why there's a connection there.
Walk me through the part where you're going to leave Jet FM. You're going to go to Ralco in Regina. You'll stay there a little bit, but then you're going to go to Kelowna.
Yeah, you bet. So I leave Comox. That was a surprise. So I knew at this point in my phase, it was early in my career. I had spent these couple of years working part-time with Jet, and I made the decision that this is what I wanted to do for a career. I'm going to go all in with the first opportunity that really is a tangible opportunity to jump 2 feet in on the career. And the job opened up for evenings on Z99 in Regina, and Mark Hunter put the application out, and he was programming Z at the time. So I applied. I put my best tape together and sent it to him. We had a few conversations, and in the end, he offered me the job. Now, problem number one is that I'm still in the Air Force, and I just signed a new extension on my contract, which takes me to 20 years. and I'm in year one of that 20-year contract. So typically, I'm not sure how many people know this, but to get out of the military when you've signed a contract, it's usually about a 6-month process. You put your request for a release in, it has to go to Ottawa. You got to go through the whole chain of command, and then it comes back to the base, to the local level, and then you get your approval or denial based on whatever reasoning. So I put this release request in December 7th, 2007. And I put a release request in for 30 days, not 6 months. And we all know that the federal government tends to shut down for a few weeks in that time, right? We get to the Christmas holidays. People usually aren't coming back. So my release request date was actually January the 8th of 2008. And it only took 2 weeks. I was very lucky. They rushed it. They sent it to the command center or to Ottawa, and it came back through the base and it was approved right away. I think part of the reason being that I was on the radio for a couple of years at that point, working simultaneously. They just recommended that it was the right thing. So yeah, I took the job. I was able to take the job. I left the military and I went 2 feet in on radio, moved to Regina and started doing this full time. And yeah, it wasn't a very long time that I spent at Rolco the first time. I was a young dad. I had a young girl at this point. My wife and I had split up. And I was trying to make as much money as I could to support her and support this new lifestyle. And we all know you get into radio in the beginning and it's not very lucrative. You really need to do what you can to grow. And I received a phone call from the team at Vista. Jason Mann reached out, and I had worked with him with the Jet station. And he said, "Hey, we're launching a new station in Kelowna. We think you'd love it. You want to be a part of it. Why don't you come out and work with us? Come do afternoons, do music, and launch this new station." And at this point, he couldn't tell me what the format was. He didn't tell me any real specific details. But I thought it was a great opportunity to get off of evenings already and get into another afternoon position in a great market. And I had family in Kelowna, so my mom was living there. So I thought it was a good opportunity to move back west. And I did. So moved to Kelowna, and of course we all know that was the launch of The Juice, the very beginning of that station, which didn't have a great history in Kelowna, but it was a lot of fun when we were there for that short period of time running that station with Natalie Taylor and the whole team, Jason Mann and the team there in Kelowna.
I seem to recall The Juice did quite well, ratings wise.
It started with a bit of a blip off the start, but I wasn't there long enough to really stay close enough to it and see how it ended up. I know it did fall, and it didn't have a very good story when it ended up selling, and then and Castanet picked it up, and then they sold it. Now we're actually running that frequency again with Pattison Media with CKOV, which I love. I think that station is a great example of trying something different that is against the fold and against the grain, and see how it goes. But you're targeting an audience that is a bit out of the norm.
And you found stability in Regina.
I did. Yeah. So I was in Kelowna for, I think it was about 10 months or so. And Tom Newton reached out and said, "Listen, we want to bring you back. We thought you're a great guy and loved working with you. And we have a real opportunity to get you into the programming fold here with Rolco." And I got to say, that was the best move I made yet. Moving back to Regina and spending some really quality time with some really smart programmers. I got to go back on air on Zed, but also get into the programming stream. I became an assistant program director right away, and then eventually took over as the PD of Z99 with Mark Hunter leaving to come launch Now Radio in Edmonton. So I kind of followed in his footsteps for the first time in 2009. And then ironically, the opportunity came to follow in his footsteps again. Fast forwarding quite a bit here, but it was very rewarding for me working with the Rolco team and getting to work with the likes of Tom Newton, Arnie Selsey, Pam Leyland, and even Jamie Wall, who now I get to work with again here in Edmonton. A lot of really, really smart programmers, and I started building my own programming philosophy around a lot of the learnings of what they've taught me over the years. So it was about 3 years programming Z99. And then one day I get a meeting with Tom and Pam, and they call me into Tom's office. We sit down and they go, "We got a new opportunity for you. How about News Talk?" I said, "What? Are you crazy? How am I supposed to program News Talk? I haven't done news 1 minute in my entire career, and you want me to program a News Talk station?" And they actually saw that as an advantage, someone with an outside perspective to try and change some of the mindset with the shows on the station, and have a bit of a different perspective. There's such a strong news director in Regina there, and he's still there programming the station as well, Murray Wood, who had a brilliant news perspective. And I think the idea was to bring me in as a different kind of programmer to bring a different perspective. And with that, we launched all kinds of programming, including the Green Zone, Jamie Nye, the sports guy, which is continuing to do really well in that market, and with a lead on the green and white and all kinds of sports, with a real vision of just guys hanging out and just talking about real life stuff that guys talk about. Yeah, I really look back on my time in Regina with a lot of fond memories, and honestly really thankful for just being able to be around some really incredible programming leadership people who I was able to learn a lot from.
I can totally see you'd be a good fit. So it's 2012. And just speaking as somebody who is in the CJOB ecosystem in Winnipeg, in that time, maybe a little bit before, programming it was pretty difficult because so much had changed so fast. So 2007 starts the age of acceleration. Social media comes in. We don't need a Facebook page. We certainly don't need this thing called Twitter. We're not doing that. It's not important. And yeah, I think a couple years goes by, and there are some legendary stations like CJME that look around and say, we need to change this, and we need to move faster to keep up with what listeners want. We have the Rough Riders. That's good.
Yeah.
Can we build around that? I totally see why you'd be a good fit, even if you didn't see you'd be a good fit at that time.
Yeah. It was a weird one for me. I didn't see my career going down that road, but I'll tell you, that was the greatest thing that set me up, I think, for future positions down the line in my career, was learning how to not just understand spoken word content, but to really coach people to perform spoken word content. Because that applies directly to my job now. All the foundational fundamentals of talk radio apply to a station where you've got a lot of spoken word programming, like a Now. It's a mini talk radio station. There is a ton of spoken word content on a station where you're built around conversation.
So I know around 2017, you're looking at Edmonton. And you're looking at a guy like Mark Hunter. Lucky guy gets to be in Edmonton, but I think Edmonton was home base for you, or it was something where you were wanted to get to, family-wise and professionally.
Absolutely. So I was in Regina. I had recently gone through a marital breakdown. Her family was all in the Regina area. She's from there, and she had a ton of family. But I had no family in Saskatchewan. I honestly hadn't really been to Saskatchewan until I moved there. I grew up in Airdrie, so just outside of Calgary, and Edmonton. My parents split when I was 3-ish, and I spent my entire childhood growing up between the Calgary area and the Edmonton area. My dad permanently has been here in Edmonton. So my goal after that was to move home, be closer to family. And then I ended up meeting the love of my life at a funeral, of all places. we met at a funeral, fell in love, and we had a long distance relationship for quite some time. So there was a lot of familial connection that was really pulling me back home to Edmonton. And I, at one point, had a pretty honest conversation with the senior management team at Ralco. And I just said, listen, I need to start looking for options to move home. And got to hand it to them. They were fully supportive in every aspect of that. They said, we'll give you the time you need. We'll recommend you for anywhere you want to go. We'll help you get there. And they supported me through that whole process. So I talked to, I think, every every company in Edmonton over that period of time, and met with a lot of programmers and GMs and operations managers. And I almost actually ended up at a different radio station. It came down to 24 hours. It was very close. I had an offer months previous that ended up being pulled because their senior programmer left and went somewhere else, and they basically did a hiring freeze, so that got put on hold. The day after Jamie offered me the job to program up 99.3, I got an email from that company again saying, "Hey, we want to offer you the job," and I had to say, "No, sorry, I just accepted one with Up 99.3. I'm going to move to Edmonton and program up." But yeah, I'm very thankful for where things landed and where we ended up. It felt like home right away. A lot of the people here in this building were with Ralco when Ralco owned these stations, so it was like coming home. I worked with Crash and Mars together when we were both hired basically within the same week of coming on to Z99. They were hired to do afternoons. I did evenings, so we saw each other every day for years before they moved here to Edmonton. So it felt good. It felt right coming back here and getting to lead this incredible station, and a lot of really great things have been accomplished with Up 99.3 over the last 7-8 years. Just an amazing team that is devoted to its listeners. And my goal was to create a vision coming in built around one simple statement: we play Edmonton's greatest hits, and we have a hell of a lot of fun doing it. And everything we do has to fit into that model. So promotions that we come up with, any music features that we do, everything, we need to challenge it and just have the guts to try some new stuff and do some things and see where it takes us. And our goal is to be, and continues to be, a top 5 station in Edmonton. That's where we want Up to be. Knowing it's an older targeted radio station, it's tougher to land in that top 5, 25, 54. But I'm really proud of how our team on Up has executed over the last 7 years. We've been top 5 way more than we haven't. And that's what modeled 2024 is such an incredible year for our Up team, is that we were top 5 every book in 2024. Our 1, 2, 3, and 4, we were at least top 5, and capped it off with a number 3 and a number 2 in R3 and R4, adults 25-54.
So when I think of Edmonton and I think of this very, very cluttered radio dial with a lot of radio stations that really oversurfing the population with music, but Up is really about music. I don't know if the station is still there, but I think Newcap, or at the time, and maybe now Stingray, had a greatest hits format at 96.3, if I'm not mistaken.
They did. It was a Capital. It was named Capital, right? Capital FM 96.3. They were there when I came on board in 2017, and I believe it was that Christmas they left. But we actually switched to Edmonton's greatest hits on Up 99.3 when they went Christmas. So they launched Christmas. It was November 7th. It was the one year that they decided to go Christmas ahead of Remembrance Day. We were all surprised by that. We were expecting it on November 12th, but when they went on the 7th, we decided we're going to go with Edmonton's greatest hits. Let's just tweak our positioner and tweak our music a little bit and be in line with where we should be. And we haven't looked back since then. It's been 7 years of running that positioning statement and that vision, and it's worked really well. We've got an incredible team focused around live interactive hosts. And I'm fortunate enough to have, live mornings, middays, afternoons, local evening show, and live and local weekends as well.
So it's pretty incredible, because I think timing again here works in your favor, and as well, I think a little bit of looking to the future. So when you're talking about having, being live and local and having personalities on the air, and the years 2017, 2018 in there, it really sort of did formulate the edge, because this is around the period for radio when, P1 radio listeners are saying, we want to hear personalities on the station. We really don't care so much about the music because I can get the music anywhere. And here you are serving it, while some of the other companies, that rhyme with Robbers, Boris, Cell, etc.
Yeah.
They're looking just to stuff the frequency with 10 in a row, 20 in a row, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I think there's only so much music you can play and be competitive. I think we're at a vital time right now. Radio is at a bit of a crossroads, in my opinion, and I see a bright future for our formats, for our industry. Um, but I think it comes down to us working together and finding out what the solution is. Um, the Alberta Day of Caring for Jasper was the most remarkable day of my career, period. There is no day in the 20 years I've been exposed to radio or part of radio that blew me away more than that day. And for a multitude of reasons. One, obviously, the success of the day, raising all of that money for those people in need. When we saw the devastation throughout Jasper and just how incredible it was to see it be as successful as it was, but to see radio come together and join forces, put down the swords, put down the competition, stop beating each other up and go, let's do something collectively as one united front. It's built by radio. Let's execute it by radio. And look at how successful it was. You can't say radio isn't impactful in 2024 or now 2025 when you see days like this. And we accomplished something with that day across the entire province that I couldn't ever imagine happening. It ended up over $1 million in Albertans donating that day, with the matching donations from the Alberta provincial government and the federal government. Over $3 million was raised for Jasper in one day by radio. And I think that really turned something in my brain, seeing that on that day, that, we got to do more of this. And not necessarily from the perspective of we need to work together for charitable reasons or come up with something for people to engage our audiences or our local communities. But I'm talking about just working together and putting radio first. If we can somehow get us together and get on the same page on a whole bunch of issues that are hurting radio right now, solve them collectively as a group, have one strategic plan that we're all going to go after to put the industry number one, I think we can come out successful. I really think we can get out of this together, but it's going to take us working together and coming up with that solution in the end.
Well, you're very lucky to be in Edmonton because that city has a history of charity and community and the radio. That goes all the way back to Santa's Anonymous at CHED and before, and even having other radio stations, promote that charity. Nobody blinks twice about it, and everybody does help everybody else out in that market. And it's too bad. I wish a number of other markets would take a page from Edmonton and find out how to get together to do great things.
It blows me away. We had I'll share this with you. We had a listener reach out just yesterday. We do this every year on Now Radio called Pay It Forward. We devote $12,000 of promo budget to give 12 $1,000 checks to people in need, and not to charities, but to people. And we allow our listeners, the Now family, to nominate people who are going through a tough time. Maybe they had some health issues this year, maybe some familial issues, something that's causing some kind of financial need and a help to help them out during the holiday season. So in December, we had 12 people that were nominated that we awarded with $1,000, shared their stories on the air. It really is beautiful to see those stories come to life. But just yesterday, I had a listener reach out to me, went into the station email and said, I'm looking for Jay Stone's email. So I just replied back. I said, what can I do for you? And this anonymous person wants to donate $5,000 for us to do 5 additional Pay It Forwards in January to give to 5 more people just to help their year start off right. And if that doesn't tell you how incredible this community is, I don't know what does. That doesn't happen. You don't get emails like that. You don't get calls like that. But to see that actually happen, I was moved to tears yesterday just to see the kindness of people. It blows you away. So yeah, I agree. We are very lucky to be in this community. Edmonton is a strong city with a really vibrant story, and it's built around community. And I think that is a part of why Now Radio has done so well in this market. It is really something else.
You weren't there when the station started, but you were working at the company that launched it. Am I correct?
Yes, absolutely.
So you know the stories and how it goes. Here's a radio station. I mean, I think the story's been told enough that I feel that I could retell the story sort of top line. So anybody who doesn't know, if you read Sean Ross and his column Ross on Radio, he will often cite Now as a radio station that does join the conversation, very well. It was one of the first stations in North America to do it, and did so with great ratings. I think the promo budget was, $1 or $2 million, and managed to paper the city with just about everything. But at the time, Edmonton radio was really, really lazy. It had gotten very, very flat. The stations like the Bear, for instance, and K97 that were supposed to be, the leaders and had Sonic in their face. Everybody there were some cutbacks. There was a recession at the time.
Right.
People coming out of that. So there was this gaping hole in the market for a station like this that stayed number one, 2554, just for half the decade, if not longer. But you're in charge of this radio station now that has massive heritage, that is fine with the conversation. And we get past that point of 2018 where people are now coming to the radio for conversation, for words, for the vocal thing that you've already been trained in because you were program director in Regina.
Yep.
So now the very basic question for people who have not heard the station. What's a typical break sound like on Now?
That's a loaded question.
It's completely loaded.
You never know.
I'm here for it.
You never know what you're going to get on Now Radio. That's the beauty of it. It's that it's so special. Man, and it depends on the show you listen to too. I think reflecting, before I get into what you might expect, reflecting on when this station launched, I think you're right. That was the radio landscape of where things were at in 2010. Yeah, we just went through a recession. There was some cutbacks happening. But think about the time as well. 2010 was a different time. Facebook just launched, mid 2007? I think 06 it launched in the college campus area, but it really didn't become mainstream until mid 2007 when people started making their Facebook accounts. So social media is an infant at this point, and texting was a thing, but nowhere near where it is today. But people are just starting to get more into texting. We got the Blackberries with the full keyboard that just came out. So people are getting excited about texting their family and their friends, but nobody was doing any of that stuff on the radio. Nobody was texting radio stations at that level. Nobody was engaging with their audience through text message. And I really think it was a little bit of lightning in a bottle, where it was the right time. It was the birth of social media. And you match that with one of the biggest marketing campaigns that I've ever seen in terms of a launch of a radio station. And you tie that with some of the most incredible talent that have ever been coached and launched with a radio station, and you've got a recipe for success for a long time. I've heard stories of, the ratings were bought. We've all heard those stories. They just bought the ratings. That's it. It's not this station.
You mean by marketing and you not marketing?
Yeah. You know what? Yeah. Okay. The marketing was very effective on the launch of this radio station, but I know the hours that went into the build of this, how long it was rehearsed before they went on the air, and the continued coaching that went on. I worked with Arnie Selsey on News Talk, and he was a big part with Doug Rollinson and the whole crew that built this team. It takes a lot of work to build talent to get them to that level. And now, I'm so fortunate. Here we are in 2025. And I get to work with this amazing team every day. And we're coming up on almost 5 years. Later this summer, it's going to be 5 years since I took over Now. But Crash, Mars, and Ginge and Haley on the morning show, they're the best damn morning show in the country, in my opinion. I know every PD is going to say that and believe that when it comes to their morning show. But let's be real. They're on a music format radio station, and they play one song an hour. They talk for 45 minutes an hour, and they do it so well. They have this insatiable drive to come up with such interesting content every time they crack the microphone. And all the players on that show are such incredible reactors to that content that they make it funny, they make it entertaining, and it really is an amazing experience. And they do it every time. Every time they crack the microphone, you're going to get that from that show. It is so consistent, it's crazy. And then you've got Adam McHale, who helped launch the station. He pushed the button for the very first time. That guy works like a horse. I mean, you should see his stack of prep that he brings in every day. He's got a clipboard and it's 2 inches thick. And sometimes Rachel makes fun of him for his prep and puts on the nerd voice and has fun with it. But you know what? That's the level of prep it takes to do a show at this level. If you're going to do conversation radio and you're going to do it well, you need to be incredibly prepared. And that man works his butt off and puts an incredible show every day. And Rachel Day, she's the heart. She is the heart of this station, and she has such an incredible relationship with the Now family. She loves them. She truly loves them. And she really cares about everything that the Now family shares with her. She's vulnerable with them. They're vulnerable with her. And she's been doing that for so many years. It's really all about the relationship that these incredible hosts have built with our audience. They truly care about the audience, and the audience truly cares about them. And if you think about it, we are creatures of connectivity. We're human beings. And since the very dawn of time, it's been about entertaining through storytelling. You think of like the caveman days where you go out and you kill a saber-toothed tiger and you draw the pictures on the wall of how I killed this tiger and bring you food. Here you go. We've been telling stories since the very beginning. And I picked up a lot of this coaching philosophy from Valerie Geller. Love her. She is incredible. I'll give her a plug. If you haven't read her book, Programmers, read her book. I got a lot of time for her.
She's got a new book coming out.
She does.
It's updated, and she's going to be a guest on this show in the next few weeks.
Oh, that's great to hear. Awesome. Well, I can't wait to tune in and hear that show. But yeah, she's the queen when it comes to building talk spoken word radio and generators and reactors and how to be an interesting storyteller. Because at the foundation of it all, we're human beings, and we need to entertain through communication and through stories. And if you can train your hosts to do that, you'll have something really special. And I'm blessed on both stations, honestly, with incredible talent that can really tell an amazing story.
So I'm glad you mentioned that about the stories. So, because there can be many different types of stories. So I've seen this format copied quite poorly by other companies across North America. How have the breaks evolved? Because I listen to one station locally here that says, do raisins belong in cookies? The phone lines are open and join the conversation. And I'm not joking, by the way.
Wow. Well, that wouldn't fly here.
Yeah.
But that again, it comes with coaching. We have a incredible evening and weekend team as well on Now Radio with Raj, with Savannah, with Kat, and they haven't been on the air for 15 years. Raj has been on the air the longest, but I mean Savannah's only been on a couple of years and she's doing incredible. Kat for a couple of years and also doing incredible. But it comes down to coaching the philosophy and how to share something interesting. Like number one, you need to be interesting. If you're not interesting, you're done. And what you said there is just not interesting. So you need to be able to share a story and take it to a conversation where people can feel open and safe to share their stories with you. And if you've got a good relationship with your audience and a place where they can feel safe to share, then they're going to do it. And one turns into 2, turns into 10, and it starts slow, but you can really build something with that. And I've heard breaks done on other radio stations similar to how you have. What's your favorite Halloween candy, for example? That's not a conversation that's going to go very far because who cares? I don't care what your favorite Halloween candy is. Do you care what my favorite Halloween candy is? It doesn't matter. But if you can somehow turn that into an interesting conversation that has a story to it, that that can really elicit some kind of emotional attachment to it, or an emotional connection, make me feel something, then you're going to have something that's a lot more engaging and entertaining.
Yeah, so I'm glad you mentioned that. So the one thing I do hear on your station is that when somebody gets into telling the story or starts the break or sets it up, they know what the end of the story is going to be. They have a very good idea of what's going to be in the middle, and they know how to start it.
Right.
And so that hasn't changed from, the dawn of great radio, which is know how to get in, know how to get out, and have a very good idea of what's going to appear in the middle with your words and what you say.
Yeah, 100%.
The packaging, for how you do it and what you do it, and then the interactivity from it is really a lot of the gold and the gravy and the glitter that happens in these breaks.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, 100%. If you're going to go into it, know how you're going to shape that story. When I start coaching with younger talent who just come into the radio station, we'll script their whole break, and you gotta walk before you can run, I like to say. So if you script the whole thing, you'll be able to get from point A to point B to point C to your out, and then be able to take that to a conversation. Resets equals ratings. So next break, reset that conversation, bring it back again, and then get into your calls and your texts and engagement. But yeah, it is about having the right foundation and the right ability to tell a good story and to have a good break.
So when the station started, it was a lot of, as a companion, or at least it complemented social media and Facebook at the time. But, now radio stations are more than FM. We are on smart speakers. We are on apps. We are on, Chrome and your computer displays and whatnot. What are some of the things that now does to be more than FM through the evolution of the last 15 years?
Well, there's a lot of things that now does. It's so different from traditional radio. Number one, we do broadcast on TV as well. And I'm not meaning audio TV, but we do have a visual component to the radio station. And that's been there for many, many, many years. We just happened to upgrade it, I think, two years ago, with fresh HD cameras, HD signal, and some auto switching software. So when you watch the Crash and Mars show, you can see it happen in real time. Cameras switch from one camera to the next between all four of the players. When they're not talking, it goes to a corner cam. And it's actually really entertaining to watch the four of them execute in the morning. It's great. We get pictures from listeners who are listening to the show in their kitchen, but they've got one of those fancy refrigerators that have a big screen on it, and they'll actually stream the Crash and Mars show in their kitchen and have the video right there on the screen on the fridge, which I found incredible. I never thought anybody would ever put the Crash and Mars show on their fridge. But that's one example of trying something different and having a visual component to a radio station. The other big one, and this isn't new, it's been since the very early days of Now. We've just challenged it and expanded it a little bit, is having in-person events with the radio station and giving our listeners an opportunity to be one-on-one with our hosts. And all of our hosts really understand the importance of that. They are fundamental to the brand, and they're fundamental to building that relationship with our audience. So anytime we can come up with a unique idea of getting together with our listeners, we do it. And, one example we do every year, it's called the Cardboard Cup, where we take over a local ski hill. And we recently, a couple of years ago, moved it to the Edmonton Ski Club inside close to downtown. And we invite our listeners to build the most elaborate creations they can out of cardboard, duct tape, and painting it all up. And you would be blown away, Matt, at the level of talent that shows up and these creations that are built. It's just incredible. We give a cash prize to the best design, and then we race them all down the ski hill, and the fastest in each age category gets a cash prize as well. But that's an opportunity not just to do that, but to also then talk to our listeners and have our hosts engaging with them on that ski hill and making it a fun experience.
I was at the Bear for 10 years. We had the Howler. So I know I know what people are capable of when it comes to costumes and design.
Yeah. Well, speaking of costumes and design, Swifty Oki, we should talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so this is one of the things at the very beginning of the show. I've already told everybody you won an award for one of your many awards.
Okay, so Swifty Oki, this was again one of the most incredible promotions I'd ever seen come together. I got to give a nod to our promo team. Sarah Olivieri, she's our promo director. Shelby Galliot, she is our promo coordinator / social media director. Alexis works up at the front, but she also helps out with promotions. Our promo team just killed it. This was one of the most amazing promotions I've ever seen. So it started with a vision. I really wanted to do something special for our audience instead of giving away, tickets to a Taylor Swift show on the radio. A lot of what I was seeing in just, minimal research, looking around different radio stations, most contests were being executed in a listen for this keyword at this hour, this hour, this hour, this hour, text in the keyword for your chance to win this trip. And yeah, it drives tuning. Kudos to those stations. It is going to drive tuning. And you are going to see a bump with that.
You're not going to, but I will say you're not going to attract the right people because it's only the people who are willing to jump through all those hoops in order to do it. So
yeah, I mean, if you get a
contest
meter,
listeners,
if you get a meter, it's great, and you can get some results from it. But I saw a real opportunity to create an event that not only would be fun for everyone participating, but it would be such a memorable event and so much fun that the event itself is almost as big as the prize. So I took our Scarioke model. I'll elaborate on that a little bit. So Scarioke is an event that we do every year on Now Radio where we take over a bar and there's a stage there. We invite listeners to come down and we hold a karaoke contest. So all of our hosts are there. Listeners show up, they sign up for karaoke. If they draw your name, or if we draw their name, the scary part of Scarioke is you don't know what song you're singing. You're going to hit a randomizer button. It's going to give you a random song. You go up on stage and you're singing it in front of a live band. So you got a live band backing you. You're singing in front of everybody. It's like, how many opportunities do people get to sing in front of a live band? And you're singing a random song. We give you the lyrics. We say, have fun. So that's Scarioke. I really wanted to take the Scarioke model and apply to this. So my original vision was doing Scarioke Taylor's version, where we would make every song Taylor Swift and do the same thing, where we invite people to come down and play along. We very quickly realized that we do that and it's going to blow up. So we couldn't do it in a bar. Taylor Swift's team also didn't love the name Scarioke, so we had to make some amendments. But I love what we ended up with Swiftioke being the name. We doubled the amount of songs. Hired our friends Five on the Side. They're a local band here in Edmonton. They're incredible, just amazing people. And we had a heck of a time at the River Cree Resort and Casino at the venue. We had 2,000 people show up for this. And we gave everybody a Swiftioke. Actually, I got one right here, a Swiftioke friendship bracelet. And then just drew names of people who entered who wanted to sing. And we had 20 Taylor Swift songs. And I'll tell you, being on stage and pulling names at random for people to come up and sing while each person was singing their song, seeing the whole crowd just so into it. They all rushed the front of the stage. They're singing, they're dancing. They're all dressed up in their Taylor Swift outfits. It felt like we were at a Taylor Swift show. Like it was that cool. And then the promo team set up all the different eras for Taylor Swift. They set up all these selfie stations, one for each of Taylor Swift's era, where you can go in front of your favorite albums and take selfies or pictures with your friends and share them on social media. All in all, it was just an incredible event. And we gave away two trips to go see Taylor Swift in Vancouver at that night. One went to the singer who was voted the best singer by the crowd. The crowd picks who they thought was the best by voting in on text. And then the second one was just drawn at random. We picked one random person who was at the event and they won a trip as well. So all in all, I think it's a win because you create an experience for people, a memory for people. They got to be a part of it. 2 people got to go see Taylor Swift from that event, but there's over 1,900 people that got to experience a Taylor Swift-like concert experience. And I think that carries way more weight than texting in to your phone number to try and enter to win a contest.
So this question is about managing and team building. So we've established so far that a lot of the success of the radio station has a lot to do with emotional connection. It's the same thing in podcasting too, right? You want to make a great audio promo, you got to make sure the promo connects in an emotional way that's going to make people connect. Same thing with the stuff that you're doing.
Right.
So you can't do all this alone. You can drive it, but you can't do it all alone.
God, no.
So what is going on in the job interviews that you're conducting that makes you pick the right people who can emotionally connect, as opposed to people who can just show up with a lot of followers and a lot of bang and pizzazz? How do you source those people out?
Great question. I'll be honest, I don't have a lot of job interviews. I'm very fortunate because my team turnover isn't very big. I haven't had one in over 2 years.
Well, that's part of it too, right?
Yeah.
There's a buy-in component.
100%. The last on-air hire would have been Savannah, and she had just started working in the NYMO for another Pattison media station out there. I think she was there 2 or 3 months, and that was her first radio job. So she had been on the air all of 2 months, and she sent her tape in. And what I look for when I'm hiring talent, I'm not necessarily looking for the stuff you can coach. That stuff's easy. It's the stuff you can't coach that I'm looking for. I'm looking for empathy. I'm looking for the ability to be relatable. I'm looking for some form of storytelling ability. You've got some sense of human connection that people will find relatable. I don't care if you don't reset your brakes. I don't care if you don't tell that story quite perfectly. But if I can hear the fundamentals in it that I can coach and help you get to a point where you can execute at a high level. And I think, honestly, empathy and vulnerability are two big things that are hard to coach, because that's just personality trait, right? You're either a vulnerable person or you're not. You're either empathetic and can understand human emotion, or you can't, and you're a little bit more reserved. And in my experience, those are harder things to get out of people. So, I think those are the things that I look for the most, and then grow from there. And if you can hire the right ones, then I also look for uniqueness. I should say I look for unique personality traits, so that not everybody's the same. On a station like Now, where you've got so many different personalities, it's great when you can have unique characteristics to each of them. And when I hired Kat, I hired her on quirkiness alone. Like she killed the interview, and she was just so interesting to listen to and hear the stories. And she's always got this wild, wacky hair color and just such a unique, quirky personality that I knew we could nurture that and create a unique personality that doesn't exist on the station. I think it comes down to individuality and being able to be vulnerable and being empathetic.
So I'm glad you mentioned the word empathy and empathetic, because I think that's one of the big drivers of any form of audio. And I believe when I had Valerie Geller on a few years ago, I asked her, can you teach empathy? So I'll have to go back and check my files to see if,
or ask her again in a couple of weeks when she's on the show.
Yeah, it may come. It may even be in the new version of the book too.
So, you betcha. Yeah,
I have a Crash and Mars story though.
Oh,
so there was a station they worked at many years ago, and I know I was just messing around in that radio station's office, and I said, "Do you remember those people you fired all those years ago?" They were like, "Yeah, they're number one in Edmonton now."
Amazing.
I just had to just sort of put that out there as a. The way guys will rib other guys, and
they're incredible. I have all the respect in the world for those two, and I don't think they get enough respect in the industry, to be honest. I think that they're really special, and I hear stories of radio schools telling their students to listen to Now Radio and listen to Crash and Mars. I hear stories of talent who have approached me and said, my PD, my coach, is telling me to listen to Crash and Mars and do what they do. Like they're so unique in how they approach content, and how the whole show Ginge is one of the best reactors I've ever heard in the industry, how he reacts to their content. And now the new edition of Halo, not really new, but recently in the last few years being given a microphone to add into the show. they've really got something special. And 2024 was a really big year for them. They conquered a big hurdle. They're back in number one in a big way. And I don't see any signs of that slowing down.
Well, Jay, congratulations on all the Canadian radio awards that I'm sure you'll create space for behind you there.
We'll find some space in the building for sure.
Is that it? What's that shirt behind you? Is that green? What is that green shirt?
That is a I guess the light is causing some grief, but that is a Riders jersey. There's a story.
Yeah, like how does that fly in Edmonton?
Well, honestly, I'm not a huge Rider fan anymore. I've got a bit tainted, honestly, on the organization personally. But my personal feelings aside, that was a really fun experience. So behind me, it's a Roger Aldag jersey. Rider great, Rider legend. His number is retired. He's well known within the Rider community. So the 2013 Grey Cup was being held in Regina. And I was so graciously offered a pair of tickets to that event from the Riders Alumni Association. They said, we've got an extra pair of tickets. We'd like to give them to you. Would you like to go? It'd be an honor for you to be there. I said, of course. Are you kidding me? I'd love to go to the Grey Cup. Great seats, like center line, row 9. Amazing seats. So it was the week of Grey Cup. And I think it was the Tuesday or Wednesday. It was after the event started happening. And I got a call from the Riders Alumni Association. They said, listen, Jay, got some bad news. We need to take one of those tickets back. I said, what? They said, we need one back. Here's the story. Roger Aldag is such a nice guy. He had 8 tickets to the Grey Cup, but he gave them all to his kids and his grandkids so they could go experience the Grey Cup, and he doesn't have tickets. So he's going to all these events leading up to the Grey Cup, and all of his buddies from the 88 Grey Cup are going, hey, where's your seats, Roger? Where are you sitting? And he goes, oh, I don't have any tickets. I'm not going. And they're bugging him. They're like, man, your name is literally on the stadium. This is the biggest game in Rider history. You have to be there. So the Alumni Association goes, listen, Jay, we need you to give us a ticket back, but you need to take Roger Aldag to the game. Can you do that? I said, okay. So, I actually got to experience the game with Roger. And as a token of his gratitude for giving a ticket back, he actually gave me that jersey and autographed it for me. So I
can remember the 1988 Grey Cup. Saskatchewan beat Hamilton 43-40.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even follow the CFL, and I know that.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Jay, thanks so much for coming on the podcast to tell the story of all those Canadian radio awards and now radio, the success you've had it up and continued success in the Edmonton market and everywhere else.
Hey, thank you so much, Matt. Really appreciate what you do for the industry too. And thanks for the invite.
The Sound Off Podcast is written and hosted by Matt Kundle. Produced by Evan Serminski. Edited by Chloe Emo Lane. Social media by Aiden Glassy. Another great creation from the Sound Off Media Company. There's always more at soundoffpodcast.com.